What is next for Florida State after this really awful, horrible season that Mike Norvell and the Seminoles have been through? I understand that there's been a lot said about Florida State, and I have said quite a bit of it, but that's not why I wanted to do this segment. Florida State fans do not need to get their heads bashed in any more than their football team has already done that. You go from being a preseason top 10 team in the AP, top 5 for me, to going 1-9. You fire the offensive coordinator, you fire the defensive coordinator, you fire the wide receivers coach, and then, of course, what's going to happen next is you're going to lose half your class to decommitments because it turns out blue chip quarterbacks and blue chip players don't want to play for a loser. I get that, right? Not everybody wants to show up and try to help you rebuild to what you think you were capable of, and not just last year, man. They were 13-0. They've since gone 1 for their last 10, 1 for their last 11. They're 1-10 since going 13-0 with that conference championship. But with Trammell Jones deciding to decommit, I was like, okay, we should probably talk about this now, because right now, Florida State is ranked number 42 in the 2025 recruiting class, which, 7 years ago might have been real cause for we are going to suck for the foreseeable future. That's not necessarily the case anymore because of this thing called the transfer portal and this other thing called immediate eligibility. To that point, though, Boston College's Thomas Castellano went into the portal after getting benched for Grayson James, and it feels like he might have some interest in showing up at Florida State. Now, on the one hand, I think you feel good about this if you're, frankly, a Florida State fan. You might even think he should have been there since high school. On the other hand, do you think it's the best you can do, and do you think there's something out there that you could get better? I think you got to go both routes. I think that you're probably going to clean house all over the map, and that can be both cathartic and helpful to getting you back to where you want to be quickly. Now, as quickly as Florida State's season turned into a dumpster fire is as quickly as it could turn into a winner. We know this, right? Think about what Texas Christian did in 2022, right? Think about what Indiana is doing in 2024. Florida State, you can do this. You can come back and be great next year. Will you start out with everybody expecting you to be great? No, we're not going to do that. That's not how off seasons work. We're going to take a look at what you get in the portal, and if we like a lot of it, we're probably going to talk well about you. If we don't, we won't. But when we start playing football, you'll have your say. And as Indiana has shown, you can get to be a top 5 team lickety split over before you get to Thanksgiving if you win every game that you play. Now, that's also asking a lot, right? I understand that. But you are tied to Mike Norvell, and Mike Norvell is tied to you. $64 million to buy him out, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So what he's doing is having to bust the whole thing back down to the studs and see what's left. Now, you're going to get rah-rah speeches. You're going to get a lot of folks going, who's a real Nolan, who's not, all those sorts of things. But I would say to you what I say to everybody, frankly, anybody that's down, like Oklahoma. Be loyal to winning. Whatever winning looks like, go do that. I realize the offensive coordinator is going to be a more sexy position, but I would really be focused on who the defensive coordinator is going to be, because Mike Norvell can call plays, and that's not really your issue so much as you spent a lot of money on that defensive line that you thought was going to be really great, and it really wasn't. That aside, the offense hasn't done much better, and it has been embarrassing at times to be a Florida State fan this year. Say nothing of the 52-3 stomping you got from Notre Dame, the loss you took overseas to Georgia Tech. I mean, we can keep going down the line on this one. The point that I would raise here is make sure that you nail the defensive coordinator, because there are guys out there to be offensive coordinator. There's Kevin Johns at Oklahoma. There is Cade Bell at Pitt. There is Brennan Marion at UNLV. I think you're going to get options there, and there's all sorts of folks that want to coach at Florida State. I think an interesting option actually would be Dan Mullen, but I just don't see that one happening. There's going to be a lot of smoke around Georgia Tech, around Tulane, Joe Craddock, and Buster Faulkner. But I really want you to take a look at the defensive coordinator position. I want you to be honest about it, and I want you to go get somebody you know can help you win right away, and marry an offensive coordinator to something that's going to complement that defensive coordinator. I think if Florida State becomes a little bit more interested in its defense, the offense will fall into line. Because I still maintain that the hardest thing to do in football is to play defense. This is an offensively advantageous sport. We have built it that way. That's how it's always going to be. And it's always more fun to score points than it is to stop people from scoring points. But stopping people from scoring points is how you win championships. Just ask Dabo Swinney and Brent Venables how they did this thing at Clemson. They turned Clemson into a world beater right underneath Florida State being a world beater, right? And Clemson has been basically that since Brent Venables retooled the defense, and Wes Goodwin did a good job of just keeping that going. So whatever it looks like for you to go get somebody that is going to call you a great defense, you go do that first. And then we'll see where the chips lay. You might need to go into the NFL to do that. You might need to go into the Big Ten to do that. Not for nothing, but Tom Allen at Penn State did an outstanding job there. We want to stay? I don't know, right? Can you make him an offer that would have him coming down to Tallahassee? I think you're capable of such a thing. I think that as we continue to ask questions about what Florida State's offseason is going to look like and how they basically got their offseason started last week, I'm still going to be focused on what you do in the transfer portal and not so much what you do in recruiting. Like the headline is, yes, 42, right? That's not great. That's not good. But I don't think that's where you're going to end. I think you have an opportunity to end in the top 10 if you make some swings and you hit. But I would really be concentrating on the transfer portal. And I would take a look at how Indiana was able to build its really cool program overnight. One of the things that Kurt Cignetti did was focus on guys who had produced in college, not necessarily what their rankings were or where they were ranked coming out of high school. What did you do? Show me the tackles. Show me the tackles for loss. Show me the catches. Show me the touchdowns, and I can help you, right? I think another guy that kind of fits this mold for me, if I'm thinking defensive-minded, is Jason Henderson at Old Dominion, who is redshirted this year, but the last couple of years, that dude's had more than 180 tackles. I mean, that's just a seek and destroy missile out there at Old Dominion. Those sorts of players are all over college football. You just have to be really good at identifying them, and then don't be cheap about it, right? You did this with Jared Verse. That is a great example of you going into the FCS and coming out with an all-American player, a great player for the Los Angeles Rams. I am not at all uncertain about how quickly Florida State can turn this thing around. And I think Mike Norvell might be able to do it. Might. We'll see. But you're going to have to nail that defensive coordinator. You're going to have to not miss on the offensive coordinator. And you're going to have to be really, really outstanding in your evaluation in the transfer portal during this era where everybody is trawling now and we're more or less playing money ball. We're looking around going, okay, where's the value? What does this guy do that can help us when what we want to try to accomplish given the league we play in? Because one of the things that Florida State fans just ain't going to get used to is Southern Methodist being a better football program than they are, is looking up at Miami. That's just not gonna be a Florida State thing. I think that pride and the fan base and, frankly, money boosters behind you is going to help you get back quicker than most others. But you don't have any opportunity to waste here or any time to waste this opportunity. You got to do it right now, and you got to get it nailed to the wall.